There we have it. We are, of course, live, ready, Motivator show, alongside Edie Chelsea. And there we go. Let me get this. Let's resolve that, shall we? There we go. And of course, we get the sound right at the first try. There.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. How are you, Lady Chelsea? How are you?
I'm good.
How are you? It's a beautiful day. Hey, yeah?
Yeah.
Your energy should be high. Okay, let's start. Let's give praise to the Iron King, who's taken us from night to day. Praise the Iron King. Long may you continue your good works. Okay, but of course, never forgetting the Galaxy Management, the visionary leader, of course, Chief Pakumbabai. I give praise to Chief Pakumbabai. I give praise, of course, to Elder Erekute. And of course, that inspired African, Nickel, the most royal. Huh? I love that name. And of course, you appreciate this, Lady Chelsea. I want to give praise, a special praise to the solution. Sister Shanice, yeah? Solution finder, huh? No problems. Give praise to them all. Give praise to them all. Of course, never forgetting what Interior Ishawa said to us. It's not Africa's natural resource, it's the source of its wealth. It's the technologies that derive from those resources. Mm-hmm. So I want to give praise, of course, to the engineers, the technologists that has enabled this station for more than 30 years, going on 35 years, to be transmitting to the people the brainwashing messages and strength to the community. I want to give praise to the engineers, the different engineers we've had over these decades. I want to give them all that peace and unity and strength will at all times. I give praise to the engineers. Yeah, I give praise. I also want to recognize, and I think that to the other pilots that make up this family that is GAD, I want to recognize you all, because it's the family that stays together, grows together. Yeah, I want to give praise to you all. Give praise. So now we move forward. I want to remember a few aspects of past shows. And I'm sure you would agree, Lady Chelsea, that we've had some really thrilling past shows. I want to give a big appreciation to members, forgive me, just did this way round. Mm-hmm. For those fallen heroines and heroes who have fallen in battle, not but in our part of our liberation, that we're responsible, really responsible, for the abolishment of the enslavement of African peoples, chattel enslavement. I want to give praise to many of the Maroons. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Such as that are to be remembered. Harriet Tubman. People such as that are to be remembered. People such as that have marked and laid down the foundations of our lives today. Empress Nzinga, another woman, yes, I know. I want to give praise to the women. We don't give praise to them enough. I give praise to them. We men, you know, we get a lot of publicity. I want to give praise to the women, okay? Because oftentimes, the suggestion is that it's very much a male's war. But I can assure all those who are listening to the show today, it's only when we collaborate as men and women of the community, when we're in unity, working as one, working together as one, that's when real, substantial, meaningful progress is achieved. Yeah? So that's what I want to do. Because last weekend proven that the Black Poppy Rose campaign led by that inspired Empress, if you don't mind, Selina Carty of the Black Poppy Rose campaign. I want to recognize her and place her amongst the great. I want to remember her. Notwithstanding, of course, our brothers from the West Indian Ex-Service Women and Men's Association and JESA from the Jamaican Ex-Service Men and Women Association, notwithstanding their contribution. But I want to remember the women's contribution, because the subsequent conversations I've had have focused on the men. And I keep saying to people, only when men and women work in unity, work together, do we receive meaningful progression. I want to give praise to the women. Praise Jah. Yeah. Rastafari. I feel good this morning, Lady Chelsea. I really feel good. Huh? I really feel good. It is, of course, necessary for me to go on and remind the listeners that if you're viewing this program via Facebook and YouTube, particular program always is being transmitted via galaxyafiwi.net. Let me say that again. This program is being transmitted via galaxyafiwi.net. And Galaxy, I'm sure you can spell Galaxy, but for those who have any difficulty with spelling and not patronizing anyone, I did want to make sure we get this right. So Galaxy, Galaxy, A, F for Freddy, I for India, W for winner, E for empire, yeah, .net, okay? That is the way to receive us via digital radio, www.galaxyafiwi.net. Okay, so that's important for those who are listening to us via Facebook and YouTube. Just so you know, that's the other methodology to hear this program. And with your permission, Lady Chelsea, I'll go on to the next segment, which of course is the health segment. Is that okay, Lady Chelsea? Yeah? Thank you. I want to remind the listeners about their health. Okay? We do not discuss our health enough, either in Galaxy or in fact most of our radio outlets, I note. So before these programs start proper, I want to always give these health messages, because our health is our true wealth. Okay? As there's a presenter here on Galaxy Radio by the name of Stephen Ferguson, who I coined that phrase from. So I give praise to Dr. Stephen Ferguson. Okay, I don't want to give praise to him. Okay, you know, we say I'm plagiarizing. You know, let's give praise to him. Right, he's one of those super duper health nutritionists, all rounder. You know, and this program is usually on a Thursday evening here on galaxyafiwi.net. It's always a good listen. Always a good listen. So let's just move forward and give those health messages. I ask the listeners to consider the amount of sugar they're ingesting into their. Okay? I'm not telling you what to do. And if you're unsure, always seek professional advice, either from your GP or from your nutritionist, or indeed from a pharmacist. As we found with a previous program, pharmacists are remarkably versatile health practitioners. Okay, may remember that. Okay, so I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting. Consider the amount of sugar you eat in coffees or found in your sweet biscuits. Okay, someone's walk away from me at the moment. And their sweet biscuits, okay, those cakes, you know. Yeah. Just consider the amount of sugar in it. Mm-hmm. And consider the cumulative impact that sugar has on your body, not this week or next month or next year or even the next decade. Mm-hmm. Consider the cumulative impact over decades. And why Professor Hilary Beckles, the Vice Chancellor of the University of West Indies, has noted that diabetes here in the UK, sorry, in the Caribbean. But equally so, it has been noted by the likes of Professor Kevin Fenton, who has been a past contributor to this show, and other health professionals, that there is indeed a serious rise of diabetes in other ethnic minority communities here in Britain. And I dare say that's true for the United States of America as well. Mm-hmm. So I ask people to consider the amount of sugar that they're ingesting and the cumulative impact that sugar has on their bodies. And ask yourself the question, do you know of anyone with diabetes? And I suspect the likelihood is that you do, because they have already suffered the consequence of excessive sugars in their diet. So I ask you to consider it. Think about reducing the amount of sugar that you ingest into your body. Similarly, the amount of salt that we ingest is another that affects our general health. I ask you to consider the impact of sugar on your bodies, okay? Just consider the cumulative impact. And of course, a good example of this, of course, is hypertension or high blood pressure, the hardening of your arteries, okay? Which therefore means that your heart works harder to push blood through your arteries, throughout your bodies, okay? Hypertension is a big concern in our communities. Diabetes, hypertension are big killers in our communities. I ask you equally to consider the amount of cholesterol that you're ingesting into your body through those meats and those other products, which are sources of cholesterol. Those foods, those pre-packed foods, with a jam packed with salt, sugars, and cholesterol. Yeah, I ask you to consider the impact that has on your body. Oh, so good to see you, Lady Chelsea. To you, the pinnacle of health, of course, huh? Okay. You know, I just ask people to consider the amount of cholesterol that's entering your body and what it's doing to your body over time, okay? And lastly, I also ask people to consider the amount of carbohydrates, typically from wheat-type products, okay? Again, just consider what impact it has on your body and the cumulative impact that is, particularly your girth, you know? When you see these expanding waistlines, yeah, that's usually a result of excessive amount of carbohydrates, okay? And of course, all good nutritionists, and I'll get to the way, that nutritionist of mine who's a stern, very stern, I tell you, okay? It reminds us, equally important to drink the appropriate amount of water. There's my water, yeah? At least 2 or 3 liters, depending upon your body mass. Unsure, go visit your GP or see a nutritionist, okay? Yeah, very important, very, very important. You'll also go on to say, important to remind listeners to continue to eat as much as they can, in reason, of course, fruits and vegetables, you know. Those are our staples. It's not these dead meat, you know, dead animal products, you know. It's actually fruits and vegetables. That is really what our body craves for, okay? So I ask people just to consider. It's not me telling you what to do. I ask you to consider it. And if you're unsure, seek professional advice. Someone you know who is a professional in the field and is able to provide impartial medical advice. Because that will and may well save your life. More importantly, improve the quality of your life. What do you think, Lady Chelsea?
No, I agree.
Yeah? Okay. But having said all of that, in order for all that to work, you've got to exercise, huh?
Yeah, that's important.
And we talked about this last week, you know, how we exercise. We need to give our body, yeah, we've got to give our body the opportunity to sweat, because through sweating we release the toxin, excrete the toxin from our bodies. It's not through only your urine and your stool. It's also through the sweating, yeah? Our bodies want to sweat. Our bodies want to be worked, yeah? It's important to us because that's how we are genetically programmed, yeah? In order to maintain a healthy lifestyle, one where you're not weighed down by other medical conditions or co-conditions or morbidity, as the technical terms go for it, you know? As you become older, you know. So much of this, what I've described, can be avoided for us taking care and thinking about what we're doing to ourselves, you know. I know it's so easy to eat these products because they're in abundance, but honestly, we've just got to consider the impact it has, the cumulative impact it has on our bodies. And lastly, I just want to remind people that, having said all what I've said, we've got to take care of our mental health. Yep. Brother Kwame in Nottingham would remind us, our mental health is as important as our physical health. And we've had guests discussing our mental health, you know, and that project is still underway, under development, encouraging those mental health practitioners to collaborate and develop joint initiatives, you know, because together the family is strong. Yeah, together last but not least, of course, never forgetting our spiritual health, giving us those moments in which we're able just to settle, that all the problems go away, and to raise our internal energy so you feel strong, confident, forthright, determined, awesome. Yeah? What about that, Lady Chelsea, huh?
That would be great, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And we can do it to ourselves, Lady Chelsea. We can do it to ourselves, yeah? This is true reparations. Reparations begins with self. Yeah. So I give praise and recognition to members of the Global African Congress UK, visionary Africans who believe that we are able to liberate ourselves. And those who've done us this justice will pay the correct legal price. Yeah? But reparations begins with self. And unity is strength, as Marcus Garvey would say. Unity is strength. We've got to work together. Get over the petty differences, the egotisms, you know? We've got to work together. Together, we are strong. Oh, okay. I feel quite good for that now. Lady Chelsea, if you were given the health message, what would you want to say? There you go, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Take your vitamins.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But do you mean those pills?
What bill form.
I hear you, don't worry, I hear you. You're right. Ensuring that our diets are balanced and we are receiving the appropriate amount of vitamins. And of course, those vitamin tablets, they absolutely play a part. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They absolutely play a part. But a balanced diet should be enough. Yeah, generally should be enough. Generally should be enough. It's us living these modern lifestyles and our food is processed so often. Much of the goodness, the nutrients are lost in the food, which is why those supplements are important. Yeah, but I understand you. I do understand. Okay. Thank you very much. So let me move forward. I do think that it's important for us to we had last week and the previous contribution. So ex-service Black Pathway Rose campaign, and I felt that was a really positive program and highlighted what we can achieve when we work together, recognizing those who are in the past who criticize those fallen heroes. But these are not people who are involved in protecting our community. Okay. But what I recognize is not to do so would be to do contributors to our current ability to be here today. Not to recognize them would be to do them a disservice. Okay. But I also want to recognize Ndidi Nshiwa, the journalist extraordinaire, where we were able to discuss that great Nigeria and what's future for Africa's most populous country. Okay, I want to recognize her. Let's recognize her because she represents the very best of us as a community. Fearless, forthright in her determination to bring peace to that great nation. And clearly, in order to create peace, you've got to create the infrastructure, yeah, the framework around which peace can flourish. And she recognizes, as many recognize, that it is necessary, absolutely necessary, for us to think carefully about the Constitution of Nigeria. Okay, and considering the Constitution of Nigeria, it's important then how that Constitution is affecting the balance of the various communities, relative balance between various communities in Nigeria. Okay, so I would really recognize that in order to move forward, Nigeria look again at its constitution. So its constitution truly of the people, derived from people's, the result of people's consultation, and reflects the ambition of the peoples of Nigeria. Okay. So let's get this right, I say to people. Let's get this right, you know? Let's get this right. And we can move forward positively. I wish all Nigerians listening to this program the best of health, and I look forward to a positive future with you all. Okay, let's give it up for the people of Nigeria. Okay, I know you're going through a rough time, but I know as Africans, if we set aside the religious differences and look at ourselves purely as Africans, then you have the opportunity to make progress. You know, so I give up and give praise to the people of Nigeria. Okay. Mm-hmm. I wonder, Lady Chelsea, if there's a past contributor you want to remember that we should note in this section, any past contributor that you want to give recognition to, anyone you want to give recognition to?
The guy, I forgot his name, came in and spoke about music, because I enjoyed.
Oh, Kwaku.
Sorry, yeah, I forgot his name.
Yeah, Kwaku, Brother Kwaku. Oh, yes. Oh, God. They inspired, and he has these series of courses, which I must say, if you're listening, Brother Kwaku, can you send a further update on your courses? Okay, these are interactive edutainment courses. Yes, absolutely. He was truly inspired, wasn't he? Huh? Truly inspired. Truly inspired. What made you remember him? Oh gosh, you are a music specialist yourself, aren't you, Lady Chelsea?
Trying. No, it was enjoyable showing. I think, you know, the courses that he had that linked to like Black history and stuff were very different. I haven't heard of anyone do that before.
Mm-hmm.
But that was special. Good.
Very good. I like the sound of that, and you just remind we've got to keep in touch with him and ensure that his work also continues to be recognised. It's brothers like him and sisters like him who actually make a difference to the community. Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how he and others continue to grow, but they are wholly dependent on support. You know, our ability to continue to support their courses and ensure that their courses are well attended, because they are truly inspirational. Okay. So you know, I think you're right. We should recognize them and say thank you so much. I think also, if we've got maybe another minute on this one, we should also recognize those climate change activists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought those young people, put many of us oldies to shame. Yeah, I think they were able to demonstrate what young people could do, the difference young people make to a debate. Okay, and I'm so immensely proud to listen and hear young people from those countries across the motherland, and indeed from the UK, from Zimbabwe. Yeah, wasn't he inspired? You know, young man from Zimbabwe, or from Ghana, inspired sister from Ghana. Yeah, from Uganda, inspired brother from Uganda. You know, from Nigeria, inspired brother from Nigeria. You know, I think people like that, we've just got to always continue to recognize them, because to recognize them is to give them honor and to give them the strength to go from strength to strength, continue to go forward. You know, I think it's so vitally important, truly important. Okay, now then, let's if I may, Lady Chelsea, let's go to that wonderful segment where we can give praise and honor to those young people we've had on our show. Books. We want to encourage young people, our children, to write books. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Inspirational books. So I will hand over to you. Let's talk about young Malachi. Huh? Go ahead.
So yes, it's a bit where we promote young Malachi's book that he wrote at the young age of 14. The book is called The Adventurous Boy King. And we're still doing the competition for children up to 16. And the book is something that you can win, so it's part of the prize. You can see it. And the other part is £25. So we kind of want to promote Malachi as one of the boys who came on the show, because we thought what he was doing was like amazing, and kind of like not many young children are doing that, and as Motivator said, we'd like to promote that. So we have the questions this week. So the first question will be for children under 10. So I'll give the number first, actually. So I'll give the number, I'll do the questions so you have time to prepare. Okay, so the number is 020 38 152 40. Then you'll be asked for a PIN number, which is 37 07 33 43 97 followed by the hash key sign. Okay. So first question will be for
Question 1. How do you spell Tutankhamun?
So that's how do you spell Tutankhamun? And the second question is for 11 to 16-year-olds.
Question 9. Who or what did the people of Kemet worship during the time of Tutankhamun?
So that's who or what did the people of Kemet worship at the time of Tutankhamun? I think you're on mute. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so those are the 2 questions for this week. You can call in at any time to join the show to answer.
Okay, so people, yeah, between who are 10 and under, and are between 11 and 16 to call in. £25 is the prize, okay? Is that a lot of money, Lady Chelsea, for someone that age?
It's enough.
Says the mother-to-be, huh?
Not anytime.
Oh, yes, I agree with you. That should be enough. Okay, let's give out the number again. It's 0203 481 524. The PIN number is 3707 33 43 7, followed by the ash sign. And regardless of what Lady Chelsea just said, I'm going to tell you the ash sign is actually the vertical and horizontal lines on your keypad. You've got to tell me what it is, Lady Chelsea. Huh?
You have that when you were younger on your little...
Oh, ash. Figure
I was just we've been there before I was born. Okay.
Okay. Right, anyway, there's the ash sign. And those of you who are in receipt of our usual media will see that in the media, we've already included the telephone number, and there's an auto dial facility, which if you click it twice, your phone will auto dial the numbers. You don't need to do anything. Just keep pressing it, and it will allow you to auto dial the numbers. In receipt of our usual media to do, okay? And I must say, very soon, on next week's show, I'll give up the number for those of you who need to access the shows of it going live. I'll give out the telephone number, our WhatsApp telephone number. You can connect to us via WhatsApp. Okay, so that's for next week. We will continue to innovate at this show as we are being transmitted live via YouTube, Facebook. And if you receive that via YouTube and Facebook, and you haven't either clicked the likes, that thumbs up, is that right, lady? Thumbs up, like that, in YouTube, do a thumbs up, so you like it. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribing only means that you receive advanced notification of the subject matter of each show, yeah? And of course, you have a direct link to the show as well. So that's all it does, nothing else happens. So please, if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so. The subscribe buttons are usually on the bottom right-hand corner, or indeed on Facebook. Subscribe to us via Facebook as well. And in both cases, under the Motivator Show. DE, Motivator Show, okay? And there's a DE, there's a space, the Motivator Show, okay? Hopefully, that's another way both to hear and see us. To hear and see us, huh? Wouldn't that be good to see my face, maybe? And more important, to see Lady Chelsea. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh! Oh gosh. Oh, there you love to see Lady Chelsea, huh? There you are. Anyway, so let me move on. Oh, she's smiling now. Let me move on now. Okay. So that's the way, and we will continue to show and find different ways in which you can hear and see us and participate in the show. But of course, those mums and dads, young men, the young women, boys and girls who are listening, who can respond to those questions posed by Lady Chelsea on behalf of young Malachi, our 14, possibly 15-year-old author of Tutankhamun, The Adventures of the Boy King. Yeah, let's go. Let's support him. Let's support him. You can obtain copies of that book via Amazon. It's still live as of today. Okay, so please give support. It's a wonderful present for this for this season. A wonderful Kwanzaa present, if I may say so. Huh? A wonderful Kwanzaa present. We should do a Kwanzaa session in the coming weeks. Okay, so let's do it. Let's. Malachi. Let's show our youngsters that we give them support. You know, we want our youngsters to write, to express themselves, to be the best of who they really can. Yeah, let's give them their support. Okay. Mm-hmm. But whilst that is happening in the background, Lady Chelsea, let's give a prelim to today's program. Mm-hmm. So today's program is a topic which we've not tackled previously. Don't ask me why, but I was reminded by, in fact, in this case, okay, let me just say that out loud, my daughter, you know, there she is, a young woman in her prime, you know, and I'm being challenged by her. So, Dad, why don't you ever talk about sexual health matters? It's a big issue in the community. You discuss general health, and you devote at least 10 to 15 minutes every week to our general health and what we should do, you know, etc. Mm-hmm. But you very rarely talk about sexual health. What? Is it taboo? That's what she said. Is it taboo, Dad? Look at me. I'm saying, well, no, it's just not come up. And, you know, wagging their fingers at me, said, well, maybe you should, Dad. Maybe we should talk about it, because sexual health and sexual diseases, it's a big problem. Yeah? We are above average incidence of sexual health incidents in our community. And you don't discuss it. What, Lady Chelsea, did we have any choice?
No.
No, we didn't. Yeah? So today's program is devoted to our sexual health matters. Okay? It will, and I'll say to mothers and fathers of youngsters under 16, you might, I give you a cautionary tone here. If I can give that, if I can give you that much, just a cautionary tone on this one for the moment, because of course we want to talk about sex and our sexual health. Okay, not sexuality, I might add. Okay, that's another program for another time. We're going to talk about sexual health. Okay, an important subject for us to discuss, and I'll remind ourselves from time to time. This subject will be recurring themed in our future program. And I do believe she was absolutely right. So I put a challenge to her. I said, well, okay, we'll do this, but are you prepared, because she is a sexual health practitioner, to come on and discuss the subject with the community? Bold as she is, but she did hesitate for a moment. It was only for a moment. And I'm blessed to have a daughter who is bold enough, Lady Chelsea, who is bold enough to not only say something, but actually do it. Remember, one of this program is, of course, to translate words into action. And you know, I always like an outcome. as a result of each of these programs, So we're not just chatting about these matters, There are actual outcomes, okay? So she's living up to that motto, translating word into action, and she's joined us today. And I wonder, Sojourner, yes, people, her name is Sojourner, and yes, Sojourner Truth. You're quite right. Inspired African, yeah? Okay, yes, that's true. Let's see if she's on the line, first of all. Sojourner, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Morning, everyone.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm great this early Saturday morning.
Oh, come on, it's the early bird that catches the worm, my dear. Huh?
I'm going to turn on my...
Are we going to see you? Oh, where is she? Oh, are we going to... Oh, there you are. Ah, there you go. Yes, people, that's my daughter. Yeah, okay. Yes, I am proud of her. You don't mind me saying that on the radio, do you, my dear? That's okay, is it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right then. All right, okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you for accepting the invitation, firstly, okay? And being as bold as I know you are, okay? So I want to say thank you. And of course, I believe you know my co-host, Lady Chelsea.
I do. Hi, Chelsea.
Oh, now, Sojourner, before we begin with yourself, if you don't mind, I want to play a video by, I know someone you have the greatest respect for. It's a video led by London's Public Health Director, Professor Kevin Fenton. Okay, and Kevin Fenton is someone who's appeared on this program, and what he's demonstrated is that we Africans, if we are to make a difference, we have to train, become health professionals. Okay, so he's a professor of public health and numerous other specialisms as well. Okay, but I felt it was appropriate this time to begin this segment with his health message in relation to sexual health in our communities, okay? And he'll provide some statistical background before we go into the interview with yourself. I hope that's okay with you, Sojourner, okay? Brilliant. So just give me a moment. Let me hopefully get this set up properly. So let's hopefully just work without any pain. I'll do this here. Give me a moment. I'm going to begin the segment now. Can you all see that see it now?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Every year, nearly 500,000 sexually transmitted infections, or STIs, are diagnosed in England, and the number of diagnoses has been rising. Did you know that people of Black Caribbean heritage experience the largest burden of STIs, and that people who report their ethnicity as Black Caribbean are nearly 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with gonorrhea compared to the general population? Rates of STIs among people of Black Caribbean heritage are disproportionately high. The statistics haven't really improved much over the past 20 years, and maybe if more people knew that, they'd want to be part of the solution, part of the change. The study found 3 key factors that statistically increase the chances of being diagnosed with an STI. 1, having sex for the first time at a younger age. 2, having a greater number of partners overall. And 3, having more than one sexual partner in the same period of time.
From these findings, the study team identified 3 actions which might reduce infection among people of Black Caribbean heritage. Empower and equip women with negotiation skills. Improve knowledge of how STIs are transmitted, and encourage people to have a respectful approach to sexual relationships.
The study team then asked community representatives and public and sexual health sector professionals what they thought about the research findings and the recommended steps. This is what they told us.
There's lots of myths around STIs. So encouraging and enabling conversations around our own sexual health is important.
We want to know more about STIs, testing, partner notifications, everything.
Sure, promoting a respectful approach is important, but talking about consent is even more powerful.
We need staff offering sexual health services to be friendly and non-judgmental.
We need to empower people to say what they want and what they expect from sex and their relationships.
My health is my health, not your health.
Ultimately, if we want to make a difference, we need to open the conversation.
Strengthening training and cultural competence can help healthcare professionals feel more confident in having more open conversations.
Our community and public and sexual health sector colleagues told us that all professionals could and should be doing more to influence change and improve the sexual health and well-being of people of Black Caribbean heritage.
We matter. Our health matters.
We are counting on you to support us.
There are 3 specific actions that we encourage you to consider. Action 1. Raise awareness among people of Black Caribbean heritage about how STIs are prevented, transmitted and diagnosed. Action 2. Raise awareness among the workforce and share information about how people of Black Caribbean heritage are disproportionately affected by STIs. Action 3. Encourage more collaborations with local partners and involve the community.
We could be involved by championing sexual health in our communities and working with your teams in your settings.
Together we can find innovative ways to promote STI prevention and help improve our own sexual health and well-being.
It's time for us to revise our approaches and take action to promote tailored and culturally competent sexual health and well-being interventions to prevent STIs among people of Black Caribbean heritage. We can make every contact count by involving the Black Caribbean community representatives in the design, delivery, implementation and evaluation of our campaigns and programs. To make a positive, measurable and lasting impact, we need to build upon our strengths and maximize collaborative efforts. We can all do something, no matter how small. So what could you do? What could we do together?
Wow, pretty powerful, huh?
You're right about.
Okay, let me turn that off properly, shall I? Oh, there we go. Hold on a second. There we go. There we go. Let's get rid of that. That was pretty powerful, I felt, and but certainly, those messages were pretty clear. And I'm assuming, Mr. Jonah, you recognise those messages, yeah?
Yeah. So regular testing is probably the most important thing, or testing at all.
Oh.
So.
We're losing momentarily there and wonder why. Okay. Might just want to change your position or something to make sure we've got good in mind.
Right next to the router.
Oh, are you really? Sometimes you can be too close to the router, I have to say. Sometimes it can be too close. But it's okay. Don't worry. We'll keep trying anyway. We'll keep trying. Don't worry. Regular testing. Okay. I think before we get to that, and before we get to the formal part, can you just maybe share with the listeners why did you want to enter the field of sexual health as your career path? Share with them. But I know there are young people who listen to this, and they'll take your cues. Why this course?
So when I first did my undergraduate degree, I studied health studies and law, and I was going to go down the law route and become a solicitor or something, but I quickly decided health was my interest. It was really interesting. There was so many aspects to health and good health. So it's not just the physical, it's society as well. It's about gender imbalances. It's about social deprivation and things like that, all determine good health. So I studied that. And then once I'd finished my undergraduate degree, I did an intern for a year at a health policy charity that specifically focuses on African and African communities in the UK.
You must forgive us. You seem to be going in and out. If you maybe just change your position, you're right. You think sitting next to a router would think you're about 10 feet away from it. There's some reason you're coming in and out. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
Hang on, let me turn my video for a second.
Yeah. There you go. All righty. Yep. Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah. So is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, it seems to be.
Okay. So once I finished my undergraduate degree, I did an internship for a health policy charity that focuses specifically on health and good health for African and African Caribbean communities in the UK. And it's run by Africans. Every member, bar a few interns, were African, Caribbean heritage. So I really became really fascinated by it. And one subsection of that charity was HIV.
Okay.
And it was run by a woman who is HIV positive. She speaks out and she talks about her diagnosis, HIV, and really promotes it within her community. And she taught me a lot about HIV, and it was really fascinating. And it was something. So throughout, I've been doing a lot of HIV health promotion, going into schools and colleges and things, speaking to nurses and doctors who don't necessarily have the in-depth knowledge of HIV, of health promotion around that. And it's always really good because in a lot of things, health and medical advances move relatively slowly. So it moves at the same rate that people's understanding moves. But with HIV, we've made so much progress that we've made so much progress that society hasn't caught up. So you can go into anywhere without fail. I can go in and I can talk about if someone's living with HIV and they're undetectable, they can't pass on the infection.
Sorry, Sojourner, we're still, Lady Chelsea, am I right? We seem to be losing you so often, yeah. I'm not sure what's causing this, which is most unfortunate.
I mean, I can come and sit next to you.
No, but what do we see? Okay, this should work all right. Anyway, let's keep plowing on. If you're able just to keep still, you might just want to check on your computer if you've got any other program running. You know, like your email, for example. If you make sure it's turned off, I think your computer is trying to run a process in the background. But anyway, whilst we're doing that. Let's ask a question or two, and I might start questions initially, but Lady Chelsea, you've got the framework, so we can work through this. Yeah. So let me, if I may, Sojourner, what are the do's? What are the good practices you'd encourage the listeners to develop? Yeah.
Okay, so I'd written a list, and it's all pretty much around testing and why we should test.
Okay.
So one is regular testing, particularly if you're changing partners. So when you change a partner before with them, it's good practice to then test. So the common ones that we would test for, can you hear me still?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, is things like chlamydia and gonorrhea, and you can do a blood test for HIV and syphilis. But when you're testing, you have to make sure.
Joanna, can I maybe suggest, because you are going in and out, maybe we'd unfortunately turn off your camera, see if we improve the bandwidth. Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, yep.
Okay, so yeah, so making sure that you're testing
Mhm.
within the right time frame as well. So for chlamydia and gonorrhea, you've got to wait at least 2 weeks after the last time you had sex to test for it to be an accurate result. HIV is about 4 weeks, depending on the type of test that's being used. In terms of testing and knowing why and when to test, a lot of people come into the clinic and they say, oh, I don't need to test because my partner is clean, or this person I'm sleeping with is clean. And then you kind of push and say, well, how do you know? Did they test? Did they show you their result? And they say, no, she's just not that type of girl. He's not that type of guy. Right. So I guess the most important thing is, just because someone says they're clear doesn't mean they are. And you can't tell whether a person has an STI simply by their appearance or their behavior. So just because they look like, I mean, you could line up 10 people and maybe one person can have an STI, and I could ask you to pick out the one that has an STI, and you wouldn't be able to. It's impossible just by looking.
You know what? It's when you to hear you say it, it's just common sense, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And then finally,
yes.
Most people who have an STI have no symptoms. So for a lot of STIs, even the more serious sexual for a long time, people won't have any symptoms or just look like maybe a cold or a flu. So that's why it's really, really important to test.
Okay. You know, what you described is just common sense advice, really. And I suppose you might agree with me that often it's because we are very rarely, well, best way of phrasing this, it's how we're taught sexual advice and good practices in schools. That's the challenge, I suspect. And I do wonder sometimes, some parents say, well, they don't want their children to be given any sexual advice until they're very old. It's usually, old is usually too late, I suspect. In my experience as a former school governor, parents are usually the last people to know about the children's activities, that's for sure. So I'm just going to ask you just to repeat what you said, but say it slower. I believe these sojourners' dues are going to be really important for listeners of all ages to take on board. Okay, so what's your first positive do? First one.
So the first one is to make sure that you're testing regularly or testing altogether.
Okay, and I suppose the clarification on that would be
where?
Yeah, how do they get tested? Do they go to the GP? Do they go to the pharmacist? Where should they go?
I mean, there's loads of places that you can test. You can go to your GP and request a test.
Okay.
It's so for men, for example, a chlamydia and gonorrhea test is just a urine sample.
Okay.
For women, it's just a vaginal swab. So both of those things you can do by yourself. So you can go to your GP and request one. Okay. Some pharmacies will have kits that you can do a test via your pharmacy. You can come to us in the sexual health clinic and we'll test you.
So how do they find a sexual health clinic?
You could Google it and just, I mean, there's sexual health. There's sexual health clinics all over the place. Like there's loads in different places. A lot of pop-up clinics as well, particularly around the beginning of December when we have World AIDS Day and we're promoting sexual health and testing. So there's loads of sexual health. If you don't want to go into a physical clinic or you don't want to speak to your GP, then you can test with an online kit that gets sent to your house.
Okay.
So we have, I know of SH24, so Sexual Health 24, where you literally just fill in your address, your details, and they'll send the post the same thing, just a swab if you have a vagina, and a urine sample if you have a penis, and then bloods you can also do. So you can, it's like a finger prick test. So the same way that diabetics check their blood and they just prick their finger and just drop a little bit of blood, it's the same concept. You don't have to use a needle or anything. So it's a more discreet way of testing, particularly if you don't have any symptoms and it's just for peace of mind.
Okay. So GP, pharmacists, sexual health clinic, you could just use your search engine to find your local sexual health clinic. And of course, SA24, you said that's the online facility. So do you know the URL for that one?
I believe it's
SH24. Is it .org? Is it .org?
Yeah.
I'll look it up whilst you're speaking. Don't worry. I'll find it out later, and I'll give that out to the listeners. So there are various ways in which listeners can access. So that's, in other words, test before you go to a new partner and ensure your partner has tested as well. And you both should share the results of your testing, is what I think you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And your next good do, because this is really positive stuff.
So if you're testing for chlamydia and gonorrhea, wait at least 2 weeks from the last time you had sex to then do a test. Otherwise, it's not 100% certain whether it will be an accurate result.
Okay, all right. Anything else you should say to us?
So the next one is, obviously, just because someone says that they're clear doesn't mean they're clear, because you can't tell whether a person has an STI simply by their appearance or behavior.
Okay. In other words, it's asymptomatic. There are no obvious outward symptoms, even though you do have an STI. Understood. Okay. So it's a silent. These are silent diseases that don't manifest themselves, but some do. I understand. Perfect. Thank you. Those are common sense sexual health advice. Wow. Anyway. So nothing sophisticated, and I hope those who are listening take it on board, because this applies to you, young and old. Yeah, young and old. Lady Chelsea, let me hand over to you.
Yes, just wanted to ask what the name is, a few STIs and maybe some symptoms.
Yeah, so the most common STI in the UK is chlamydia. So most people know chlamydia, and it accounts for about 50% of all new STI diagnosis. So it's very common, particularly in those under 25. So a few years back, there was a really big push to get people under 25 to test. And actually, I was part of that. So in around Croydon areas, South London, Greenwich, all of those areas, I used to go to different places, leisure centres and things like that, to just opportunistically test people. First of all, it was really good to engage, but really, when we saw the results, sometimes it was quite shocking that we could go to a college, for example, and test maybe in an hour, we test maybe 15 people. Okay. And once there was about 10 people that came back positive for chlamydia. Yes. Wow. So a lot of those people may have been walking around with chlamydia, not knowing. Yeah. Not testing and not had an opportunity to test.
Yes.
And yeah, but I mean, if you were to have symptoms for chlamydia in men, you might experience pain when you're having a wee. So we say urethral discomfort when you're having a wee. Right. Sometimes you might have a bit of discharge, testicular pain as well. You might experience in women. So women are less likely to have symptoms, but in women you might experience bleeding, not during your period, and possibly sometimes after sex as well. They might experience pain when having a wee as well, so passing urine. And in more serious cases, chlamydia and gonorrhea as well can lead to complications, so lower abdominal pains some women might experience, which is, if you do start experiencing lower abdominal pain, it's best to speak to a clinic or your GP or something just to make sure that it's not being caused by an STI.
Yes.
So that's chlamydia. In gonorrhea, it's the second most common STI. Men will experience discharge. Sometimes it's profuse, so a lot of discharge out of their penis. It can range from being clear to white to green. Pain when they're having a wee as well. Similarly, in women, they might experience changes to the discharge, pain, so similar to chlamydia. So those are the two more common ones.
Okay.
In the Caribbean community, there's an STI. It's common, it's prevalent, it can be in any community, but it's more prevalent in the Caribbean community, is an STI called trichomonas or TV.
TV. Oh yes, I've heard this one. Yeah, tell us about that. Mm-hmm.
So so if you were to use SH24, it would test you for chlamydia, gonorrhea, HIV, and syphilis, but it won't test for TV. So some people have TV and not know that they have TV. So we test women, we don't test men, simply because the test isn't as sensitive in men as it is in women. So with a normal vaginal swab, we can test it. So some women experience kind of thin, frothy discharge with an intense itch. So initially you may think that you might have thrush and self-treat for thrush, which we always recommend to self-treat for thrush if you have a bit of itchiness, but then still have symptoms and it may be TV. It's easily treated, so it's an antibiotic as well that you take, but we just don't routinely test for it unless there's a need to test for it.
Okay. Yeah.
So those three are that, and yeah. And then we have, of course, HIV that people are more aware of, and syphilis as well.
I think there was a few more that I know of, but maybe you want to just explain a little bit for people. So I'll read out one or two and then so there's genital warts and genital herpes. If you want to.
Yes. Okay, so genital warts is caused by the HPV virus. So it's called the human papilloma virus. In terms of risk and what we see in the clinic, genital wart pretty harmless. Aesthetically, people don't like to see it. It's literally a wart on your genitals. Warts could be plural. There's loads of different strains of HPV virus, and women sometimes get alarmed when they hear that it's caused by the HPV virus, because when you go for your smear test, they look for HPV on it for potentially indications of cervical cancers. But there's loads of different strains of the HPV virus, and the strain that causes genital warts is not the same strain or strains that can cause any sort of cervical cancers or anything like that. So it's not harmful at all, really. It's a virus, so it works with your immune system. Same with herpes as well. It works with your immune system. So sometimes if people are feeling stressed or run down, not enough sleep, smoking as well, the diet's not that great, they might notice a reoccurrence of genital warts, or it might take a longer time for it to be resolved, so for it to completely go away. In a lifetime, most people will come into contact with the HPV virus, and it's spread through skin-to-skin contact, so sex is a very good way of passing on a wart. but we can remove them, so we can freeze them off if people wish. We can give topical treatments. We can also do what we call curettage, which is using a scalpel and kind of surgically removing it as well. But that's more in the in more complicated cases. We don't routinely just do curettage. And people can get rid of the virus naturally by themselves without any help. Pregnant women might notice if they have the virus that they might have more reoccurrences just because you have another child, that you have something that you're growing and your immune system and your body is focused on that. So they might notice that they might have a lot of warts during pregnancy, which is fine and normal and expected. So that's genital warts. And then herpes. Genital herpes is basically a cold sore on your genitals. So a lot of people suffer with cold sores, and a lot of people notice that they get cold sores when they're feeling run down or they're just about to get sick. And it's the same for genital herpes as well. It's caused by herpes simplex virus, and there's 2 types that we test for. Now, online, you might notice that there's tests that you can do, a blood test for herpes. We don't do that in our clinic, and I don't necessarily recommend doing it because you can have the herpes virus and not have any visible ulcers or any painful ulcers or anything like that. So, I mean, okay, you have the virus, but you're not, come in if you have symptoms, basically. And there's
Can I ask you that one? Because I understand with that one that it is very much, it's quite prevalent across all communities, and it's one that sits in the background waiting for an opportunity, as you say, for your body to feel run down. But it has relatively few symptoms. Am I right in saying that?
I mean, so it is very prevalent. I think with herpes, there's a taboo around it. So not many people talk about the fact that they have herpes. In the clinic, you'll see at least 2, 3, possibly 4 people coming in with herpes in a day. So that's just how common it is. It's not something that's like a life sentence or anything. You can live and full a normal life. Some people, once they know that they have the virus and they kind of get used to it, some people may have one outbreak and not have an outbreak again. Some people might have them a bit more frequently, which is fine, and people can notice kind of signs before they get visible painful ulcers. So some people experience a bit of like a tingling sensation before they get the actual ulcer or blister. So in that case, once we know you have herpes and you have the diagnosis, you can get treatment and you can start taking the treatment once you start noticing the tingling sensation, so that you don't get the actual blisters or ulcers.
Okay.
So
that's very helpful. That's very
yeah.
So
A lot of people, most people self-manage at home, and they just come in if they need some more medication, basically.
Okay. Lady Chelsea, I think there's one other, isn't there?
Yes, syphilis.
Okay, so syphilis comes under the bloodborne pathogens umbrella. So with things like HIV and hepatitis. I can give you a brief overview of syphilis. It's quite a complex one. A lot of people will not have any symptoms of syphilis. They might start out with a painful kind of ulcer-like blister on maybe a genital, so on the penis or something, and sometimes it can just be one and then it can go away. Some people get like a rash on the palms of their hands and the soles of their feet, and then it just progresses. So with syphilis, it's really important that you're treated because it can potentially kill you. So it can cause neurological problems, it can cause problems with your eyesight. So that's why it's really important when you go to the clinic, instead of just doing the easy testing where you're just supplying a urine sample or a vaginal swab, do your blood test as well, because that tests for syphilis and also for HIV. So make sure you're doing that. But in terms of treatment, we can treat it easily. a few injections, and you'll be good to go pretty much. Make sure that your partners are testing, are getting treatment as well. But yeah.
Brilliant. This is really very interesting, very informative, if I may say so, to Jenna. Lady Chelsea, I think there may be one other question you want to answer, and I'll go on to the other questions.
Yeah, just want to kind of things to prevent STIs.
Say that again, Lady Chelsea.
Yeah, but I'm asking about barrier protection.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, this is the one that we had a really long conversation, me and my dad, about barrier protection. So there's loads of different types of barrier protection. The most common is obviously the male condom. So the condom that goes over the penis, that provides basically barrier protection, is what it says. It provides a barrier between your body fluids, because most STIs are spread through body fluids, so vaginal fluids, semen, anal fluids as well. So using a condom to provide that barrier is great, because then you're not coming into contact with the potentially infected fluids. So we have the male condom. There's also the female condom, which is less commonly talked about and less commonly used as well. No one really requests it. Most people just request condoms. So yeah, and there's also, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's a sheet that you can put over. So women, particularly men, given oral sex as well, it's literally a stretchy sheet that you put over the genitals.
Okay. All right. Well, we're getting there now. As I said to the listeners, we're selecting for those above 16. So this is good. Can I just probe you a little further? I very rarely hear about the female condom. Is it? I hear about the pill, and injections women might take to prevent pregnancy, but I suppose the female condom is not one I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
And I don't see it in the shops, in the chemist or whatever. But why is it not so? Not publicized to an extent. Yeah.
It's a range of things. It's not knowing that they're available, but then we have to ask, why do people not know that they're available? And I suppose if we want to go down the route of kind of gender inequalities and expectations and social norms, so generally, if you speak to people would say, well, it's the man's, it's the man that provides the condoms. It's the man that has to have that. And I think it's really important, especially if there's any kind of health professionals out there that speak to women as well, that we're offering them condoms. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a female condom, but just say, do you want to take some condoms? Especially when you're talking to young people, they'll say, well, as a girl, I'm not going to carry condoms. They're going to think that I'm loose. But I mean, what happens when you're in the situation where you're in the heat of the moment? There's this guy, let's talk about heterosexuals. There's a guy that you like and you want to have sex with them, and they don't have a condom. What's the next move? Do you stop? Or do you just say, well, okay, well, he doesn't have one, so we won't use one? If you had one and you wanted to use one, then you're as responsible as the guy to provide basically the protection. A lot of people get hung up on the fact that if a female is using contraception to prevent pregnancy, that it will provide protection against everything else, when it doesn't. It only stops you from getting pregnant if you're taking it or using it properly. But condoms and barrier protection is the only way that you're going to stop yourself from getting an STI from a person that you don't know. So it's really important. And I think personal preference, it's fine, fair enough, if you don't personally want to use a female condom. It's kind of like a little bag with a ring and things, and I suppose if you don't want to, you have to position it properly as well, so make sure that it's positioned inside properly. And fair enough, if you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it, but make sure that you as a woman are having some sort of protection and have that protection.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that clarification. And that's a very useful. The various STIs and how you might catch them and so on. That's very helpful. Maybe can I just go on to the next theme, which is good genital health. Let's see, I'll address men and I'll leave Lady Chelsea to address the women. So what would be examples of good genital health in men?
So making sure that you're cleaning your penis properly, particularly if you're not circumcised. So making sure that you retract the foreskin, pull it back, wash it. Don't use any harsh soaps or shower gels. I won't name brands, but the harsh, heavily scented shower gels and things. Don't use that because you're just going to irritate your penis. Making sure that you've retracted it, and then once you've cleaned underneath, you've dried properly as well. That's probably the most important thing that I would say.
Okay. You mentioned a number of things. Just a bit slower for us, because I know you're familiar. So I've understood in terms of cleaning and only using water. Shower gels and soaps and so on are a sort of common thing these days. And there's some soaps you can buy for your genital areas. Are you suggesting those are not really recommended?
Well, particularly in women, I would say those soaps and things that are specifically targeted towards women and good intimate health. One that comes to mind starts with an F and ends with fresh. Don't use those.
Don't use.
Yeah. So it
I'm concerned with men at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of soaps and things, just make sure that they're not harsh, overly drying and things. Making sure that it's dry once you've washed and
Okay. Lady Chelsea.
Oh, well, same question with women.
For women. So what I was saying is basically those intimate washes, don't use them. They do more harm than good. Your vagina is great because it will balance itself out and it will tell you when it's not happy. So you don't need to overcompensate or anticipate that it's not going to be smelling great or whatever. Don't use those intimate washes. It's going to throw your pH balance off, which isn't great. And then what else would I say? Avoiding things like douching. So for the same thing, a lot of women are concerned about odors and things. If you're concerned about an odor, go to your GP or come to a sexual health clinic. Vaginas aren't meant to smell like roses, so they're not going to smell like roses. Okay. I mean, that's as much as I can say. And it's what I tell everybody, because a lot of people come in, they're concerned about the smell, and it's normal. There's no smell most of the time. But it will clean itself. You don't need to use soaps. You don't need to use shower gels, particularly down there, because it's going to irritate it as well. And don't douche, so spraying water up inside your vagina and things. You don't need to do that. It will get rid of whatever needs to be got rid of by itself.
Okay. Lady Chelsea, maybe one more.
Okay. Who are you more likely to see in sexual health clinic, like age-wise or?
It varies. So we see a lot of young people. We have specific young persons clinic. So those who are under 18 can come and see us and just drop in. Because of COVID, the way that we run our service is different in my clinic anyway. So we usually make appointments with people and they have to call up and be booked in. Sometimes it can be a nightmare. So for young people, we just allow them to walk in a specified time frame on a specified day. So we see quite a few young people. They come in a lot for contraception and not always thinking about sexual health testing as well. And then so 18 to maybe 35. We see a lot of those who come in for various reasons: sexual health, peace of mind screening, symptoms as well, being contacts of an infection. So it varies. And then those older than that, we usually will see them for contraception. So maybe getting a coil refit and then kind of opportunistically test them, because while they're down there, we might as well just do a swab as well. So we find a lot of STIs that way in that age group.
Forgive me, are you saying that the older groups tend to come for contraception, and then you do you're able to take the opportunity to test them for an STI, and that's how you're catching it? You're not coming in deliberately for potential.
Yeah, generally, like you get obviously the people that will come in because they do testing and they're on the ball and stuff, but a lot of people, it's kind of like, well, I've been in this relationship for a really long time, so I don't need to test. But you do need to test, particularly if you've never tested, because there are people that are of a particular age that have never had a sexual health screening before, and we can find all sorts of things simply because we've kind of brought that to attention. Maybe you should test, or you've just come out of a relationship or marriage, maybe you should test. A lot of referrals from GPs currently in the older age bracket and younger age bracket, actually, simply because they don't have the capacity to see them. And it's a blessing and a curse, because a lot of the time it's probably not an STI that's caused symptoms. It could be something, so pain when having a wee, frequency and urgency, have a UTI. So you could just have a UTI, but it's worth just coming in and just excluding STI.
What's a UTI? What's that?
Oh, a urinary tract infection. So yeah, men and women can get it. It's not an STI, so it's not transmitted sexually. We can treat it at the clinic, but you don't have to come to a clinic if you have a urinary tract infection.
I heard this term used, I'm not sure you've used it already, BV.
Oh, yeah.
What's that term mean?
The BV stands for bacteria vaginosis, and it's basically when there's bacteria inside the vagina, good and bad, and it's basically when there's an overgrowth or more bad bacteria than good. So sometimes it can cause a fishy smell, fishy odor, or kind of, some people describe it as a smell that they can't particularly put their finger on, but they know it's different. It's not a STI, so it's not sexually transmitted, but it can be triggered by sex. So some people notice that they get BV after having sex. Some people, sometimes if you have a coil in, you might be a bit more prone to getting BV, also thrush, but BV.
Okay, yeah. Very helpful. Thank you for that. We're approaching the last part of the interview now. So I did want to just round off of a few straightforward questions. So can you dispel the common myths that pervade the community about STIs? Like, can you get STI by sitting on a toilet seat, for example?
No, you can't.
So you can't even get those warts you mentioned?
No, you can't. So most viruses aren't that great at staying outside of the body. So HIV, a lot of people are concerned, if I share a razor with someone with HIV, I'm going to get HIV. Well, the HIV virus can't really survive outside of the body for too long. So no. So sitting on the toilet, you're not going to get an STI from sitting on the toilet.
What about sharing cutlery is another one I heard.
No, so same thing. It needs a host, and a fork or a knife is not a host to so sharing cutlery with you're not going to get HIV from that. You're also not going to get an STI from that.
Any other myths that you've come across that we should mention, that we should dispel now?
So I think I touched on one about you could tell whether a person has an STI by what they look like or how many people they've slept with. So for a lot of people, you could have sex for the first time with someone and contract an STI. It doesn't discriminate. If you have it, you can pass it on. But most of you won't know what someone looks like.
That's perfect. I know we've got a call on the line at 2911. We can hear you, and we'll come to you in a moment, I must say, but we can hear you, just so you know. So, Jodie, any other myths we should dispel?
I think the final one is probably the most important one and most appropriate one for this time of the year, where World AIDS Day is just gone, is with HIV. Mm-hmm. So a lot of, actually, no, I've got two.
Okay.
The herpes one. So people are worried about herpes. Women, if they become pregnant, they can't deliver vaginally, which isn't true. You can. Depending on when you've been diagnosed. So if you were diagnosed when you were like 18 and you're now 25 and you're pregnant, then we can start you on treatment at a particular time prior to delivering. So we can suppress the herpes virus so that there's no risk of having ulcers or any sort of active herpes when you're delivering. So you can deliver vaginally. It's just always important to let your midwife know that you have a herpes diagnosis so that they can manage properly. But you can deliver fine, perfectly. People do. So HIV. Mm-hmm. There's a campaign called U=U, which means undetectable, means untransmissible. And that's basically if someone is HIV positive and they're on treatment for at least they've been on treatment and they're undetectable for at least 6 months continuously, then they cannot pass on the virus. Even if they're having unprotected sex, they cannot pass on the virus. And a lot of people want to argue them that what if this and what if that, but no, there's a lot of research, and HIV has come such a long way since the 80s that we've reached a point where you can't pass on the virus if you're undetectable.
Right. Now, and thank you, and that's a really useful clarification. Am I in hearing what you've said about the various STIs? What you haven't used the word is cured. Are these STIs for life, and therefore you simply got to manage them, or do we have the technology to cure ourselves, therefore to rid our bodies of the STIs?
Yeah, so with chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonas, we have treatment, so antibiotics, which is an infection, so we can treat with antibiotics and you won't have it again. You can get reinfected, you definitely can get reinfected. The more times you reinfect yourself with an STI, the less likely we're going to have treatment for you. So there's antibiotic resistance. Make sure you're taking your tablets properly. Make sure you're not having sex for the prescribed time. So usually we say, for example, chlamydia is a 7-day course, first line. So for the 7 days, no sex. And for 7 days after that, no sex isn't treated as well. To avoid reinfection, because then it becomes complicated. It can lead to fertility problems as well. And that's the reason why we were doing the chlamydia testing program, is because once people, particularly women, were trying to conceive at a later age, they weren't able to. And it was because they had past infection of chlamydia that's caused fertility problems. So those are those that are treatable. HIV, we don't have a cure, but we have really to prevent infection beforehand. So we have PrEP for people who are in high risk. A man who has sex with men, you're from a place where HIV is an endemic, so high prevalence rates of HIV, we can start you on PrEP, and that prevents HIV infection if you're taking it properly. Right. Even if you're coming into contact with HIV, you're doing the most risky things, it can prevent HIV infection, which is great and brilliant, but you just have to be mindful that there's other STIs out there that it won't protect.
You can also contract. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just
other things to just about with the women quickly, because we didn't get to.
Calls now.
quickly just maybe explain thrush. Firstly, answer, is discharge normal, and what does normal discharge look like, and maybe the importance of smear tests.
Okay, so thrush is caused by a fungus called Candida, which is present inside the vagina, but it can overgrow when especially if you take antibiotics. So if you've been treated for something, say you have like an infection in your throat or something, and they give you, your GP gives you antibiotics, it kills all bacteria, the good bacteria inside your vagina as well, which can cause thrush. It's not an STI. Again, it's something that women will have at least once in their lifetime. So it's not sexually transmitted. It's just something that unfortunately we get as women. Men can get thrush-like symptoms as well. So kind of cottage cheese, so similar to when women get thrush with cottage cheese, like discharge. Cottage cheese, itchiness, red like spots on the tip of their penis and things, which we call balanitis, and they can get that. But it's self-treat. Go to your pharmacy, even your supermarket, and you can get thrush treatment. So that's thrush. What was the other one? Question?
So, discharge, is it normal, and what does normal discharge look like?
Yeah, so discharge in women is normal throughout your cycle. So you might notice kind of thicker discharge at particular times, thinner discharge. When you're ovulating, your discharge changes. Sometimes you might have very little discharge as well. I think once you get to a particular age, you kind of know what's normal for yourself. So if you experience kind of like an increase in discharge, which is completely abnormal for you, discharge with kind of like a fishy or kind of a different odor, then it's worth, you can come in, we can check you out, or sometimes it might just be a bit odor.
Okay.
Thank you, Sojourner, for that, and that's very, very helpful. I'm going to go through some of the callers, but before I go to the callers, I just want to just remind listeners, therefore, if you're in doubt, get checked out. You've got your GP, of course. You've got the sexual health clinics, and you just use your search engine to find your nearest sexual health clinic. You've got your local pharmacist, if they've got a sexual health attachment to their pharmacy, a very good outlet. And of course, you've got sh24.org.uk. That's the online service where you're able to obtain advice and of course the diagnostic equipment if required. So www.sh24.org.uk. Now, Sojourner, are you happy to take a few calls?
Yeah, I guess.
You'll be fine. Don't worry. Now, I've got a call on the line, and this caller came in quite early. Then I've got two callers. Number ending with 2911. I wonder if you want to ask a question of Sojourner. Yep, you want to say something. Just introduce yourself and just ask your question. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. I have a question about depression and anxiety. I think can cause a lot of tension in relationships, and I think I just wanted your advice with also the distrust of the a lot of people's distrust with the NHS and doctors and medical services. What do you advise if, because of anxiety and depression, it's difficult to I have noticed there's a lot of publicity on TV adverts about erectile dysfunction. So what's your advice, with all those factors in society at the moment? How do you advise, to overcome those difficulties?
I think so. It's quite important to find someone people to talk to, particularly, I mean, it's COVID. We're seeing a lot of people who are stressed and experiencing, so even with herpes, lots of things going on, but there's really good services. So you don't even need to necessarily speak with your GP. There is a service called IAPT, so IAPT, and they provide services across the country, and you can self-refer and you can get a lot of counselling services and things like that. I think in terms of erectile dysfunction, there can be a lot of causes for it, and in our sexual health clinic, because erectile dysfunction isn't necessarily like an STI, well, it's not an STI that needs treating, refer back to your GP to kind of establish what's causing the problems. But particularly if it is kind of a psychological issue, then I'd say definitely IAPT is a really, and we signpost people to them all the time, and they're really grateful for it.
Okay. What does IAPT stand for, the acronym?
I couldn't tell you what it stands for, but it's IAPT.
IAPT. Yeah. I'll have to look it up whilst the program is underway. Corda, does that answer your question? You have a follow-up? Corda?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your call. I see we've got called up with number ending 8188. Good morning to you. Could you introduce yourself? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Nikita. I've been listening in, and great show. I would say this is a very important show. Definitely. I'm younger, 25-ish. So this is something that I find around young people, especially those a bit younger than me, is not spoken about enough. So well done, Sojourner, for having this, for coming on. I would say, I think, Chelsea and I are around about the same age. So like we were in university not too long ago, and we noticed that, I particularly noticed that the men there, they were less likely to go to the clinic to get tested. It was more likely the girls who would. And you'd hear quite a lot, well, if she's getting tested, then why should I? And I think that kind of goes back into the taboo around sex in general. So I noticed at the beginning, the Motivator, you said that this show is probably for like 16 plus. But I'll say that it's actually important for all ages to hear about this type of stuff. Simply because once they get to a particular age, 16, 18, when they are generally going to start having sex, and especially when they go off to university, moving away from home, it's important for them to be safe and to understand what's normal and what's not normal. So I would say, Journal, my question to you is, how do we kind of tackle that, the stereotype, the taboo around sexual health, especially when it comes to men? And then maybe this particular part of the question is not necessarily just for you, but what you've experienced. How do we encourage young girls to speak up, like you said, be more vocal about having condoms and, taking that lead?
There's a lot there.
Those are good questions. I think it's about having open and frank conversations, firstly. And education shouldn't just be, with education in any area, it shouldn't just be the professional, so a teacher or the nurse, sexual health nurse. It shouldn't be left just for the professionals. You can start having these conversations with your children at home. And I think your question actually is really good. And talking about consent, which is the most important thing. In fact, your video talks about consent as well, because consent also wraps up in being able to have open conversations with your partner. So, for example, women having conversations with their male partners about how they feeling comfortable. Do they actually really want to have sex? Are they just doing it because their partner wants to have sex? And if so, are they just having sex the way that their partner wants to have sex, possibly without a condom, and then putting people at risk. So what I would say is speak to your children about sex and relationship in an age-appropriate manner. Consent knows no age. You can start speaking to your children about consent from very young. And it's not about consent in sex, it's about consent for anybody to touch them. So anybody to hug them, or, sitting on someone's lap and things, and making sure and promoting that, encouraging them to have a voice. If they don't feel comfortable in a situation, make sure that they're able to speak to you about the situation. A lot of young people come into the clinic, and especially if they're under 18, we have to make sure that they're safe, so do a lot of safeguarding and things. And we always ask, do your parents know that you're coming to the clinic? And a lot of them, their parents don't know that they're coming to the clinic. They can't speak to their parents about sex and relationships. And it will overcome a lot if mums, dads speak to their sons and daughters about good relationships, not just sex, because relationships, sex, they're all tied in together. So just make sure that you're friends. You were all young once, and so you know what it's like to be young. So don't pretend that you weren't, and you weren't learning and figuring things out when you were 15, 16, 17. And please don't just stop it at don't come home pregnant, because that does nothing.
Quite right. And I suppose we parents and others need to think very carefully about the advice. And obviously, I think you might agree, Sojourner, that it's because of the way we were taught about these matters, and maybe it's people like yourself, Sojourner, who will become the health champions, and sexual health champions in the community. And I suppose that term was used to me the other day, and I assumed a sexual health champion was a sexual health specialist like you. I understand that these are just ordinary people who are, who have gone through some training, but have been prepared to communicate these common sense sexual health issues, subjects to their friends, families, and wider community members. Is that something you're involved in yourself, from preparing people to communicate with members of their families, friends groups, and wider communities? Are you involved in that? Or?
So I don't think there's any kind of like formal thing in, but I suppose it starts by speaking to people. So, I mean, my friends are all around my age, and we're nearly 30, but my friends all come to me and ask questions because they know that I have a bit more knowledge than they would. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be me who's gone through training, I'm a nurse, I have a nursing degree. It doesn't have to be someone like me who does it. You just have a bit more knowledge, open up conversations with your friends, especially girls. We like to talk about boys and stuff, but let's talk about discharge. No one talks about discharge, and more so taboo subjects. Talk to your friends about them. We talk about everything else.
Yes. In other words, we've all just got to grow up a bit, I think. Yeah, yes, we just got to grow up a bit. So these are just natural occurrences in our lives. Yeah. I hear you. I think that's a really, really good piece of advice. I'm aware that this show is limited to 2 hours. You've been on for just over an hour, or about an hour, and I'm conscious that others will listen to the recordings on Facebook and YouTube, and they want to contact you. Now, obviously, would you mind if I were to receive questions and then relay them to you, and we can go back and forth to give advice to those in the community who want that advice? Would that be all right if I was to be your conduit? Would that be all right?
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I would also say that a lot of things, so medications, treatments and things, it all relies on kind of medical history and medical conditions and things. So we can talk and I can give general information, but please go to your GP, go to your sexual health clinic who has access to your medical records and can give you your own bespoke advice as well.
Absolutely. That's always been my advice to listeners about a number of other subjects as well, which I won't go to today, but as they most certainly stimulated some debate amongst the community, particularly COVID. But I won't go there for now. That's very, very helpful, very helpful. I've noticed that we've only got another 3 minutes or so, and I see that caller with number in 2911 is still there, but if you've got any closing questions, please pose it. And also caller with number ending 8188, if you've got a closing question, please ask it. Otherwise, I'm going to go into if not, close it. Yep, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I do have another question actually.
Yeah, a very quick one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and get it to be as quick as possible. But just around those now who are older, because I was seeing quite a few things about like those in like retirement homes, for example, they have a high rate of STDs. But then if we lower that rate just a little bit to like 50s, 60s and stuff like that, how often do you see, well, I don't know if you're able to share this information, but how often do you see them coming to the clinic to get tested? Because you mentioned like long-term relationships, people don't necessarily get tested as much. So,
Once we forget that those older, so 80s even, are also still sexual beings. So they may still be having sex with people. Some people, we're not talking about sexuality, but some older people in terms of sexuality and knowledge around keeping safe, if you're a man who's having sex with men, isn't as great as it is now. We do see a few. Not many. A lot of them are referrals from GPs because of to exclude STI as causes of certain symptoms. But yeah, we see a few, and it's always, every day is a learning day, so it's always good to impart your knowledge as well. Don't just assume everything simply because of their age. So yeah, we do see a few.
Okay. I want to say to you all, thank you for contributing to this program. I thank the callers for calling in. Okay, I want to thank the callers for calling in. Thank you. So, Jenna, you've been brilliant.
Thank you.
You've been brilliant. I think we need to do it again. Lady Chelsea, do you agree? We need to do this again? Yeah. We've got to keep this issue in people's consciousness. Okay. I'm aware that here in my own borough of Southwark here in London, that the instances of sexual or STIs in our community have been persistently high for more than 20 years. Yeah. And whilst there have been the odd campaign or two, it's very rarely discussed, even in the council. It's been persistently high levels of gonorrhea, high levels of HIV, high levels of chlamydia, you know, way above the average. And the video I played with Professor Fenton and his colleagues, when he pointed out it's 5 times higher in our community than neighbouring communities, that implies that we're not doing enough to mitigate the spread of these diseases, okay? And we've got to be, a bit more grown up about the subject, get rid of the stupid taboo, and let's discuss these subjects so that we don't infect our children's children, because that's effectively what's happening, okay? It's been persistent because we refuse to discuss it, okay? It is not a shameful subject. It's simply a fact of life. It's simply a fact of life. So I want to thank you, Sojourner, for what was very informative, and we will do it again. Let's give it maybe 6 months' time. We do another round, and we tackle it from maybe a different angle. But most certainly, it's an important subject for us to mention, and I'll continue to mention this subject in our health slots, Lady Chelsea. Good sexual health is as important as eating good food and exercising and so on. Good mental health. Good sexual health matters.
Yeah.
Okay. Sojourner, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Love you always. Hey, from your dad. Oh, thank you, Sojourner. Brilliant presentation. Lady Chelsea, how about that, huh? How about that, huh? Yeah? Should we do it again?
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and we could think about the how we approach it, but I think it would be really good. I'm not sure if we should focus on a particular age segment. Maybe that's it. Just noting what you said at the end there about older persons my age, and our possible resistance going to a sexual health clinic. I had called in my other public role to visit a sexual health clinic in Camberwell, and I note that there wasn't anyone above 40, 45, let's say. They were all young people.
Yeah.
And if I may say to my age group, that's dangerous. Very dangerous. I'm looking you all in the eye. That's dangerous. Yeah. It implies that we are less cautious about our sexual health, that has got to change. If we are to, it's possible these figures are not being quoted enough, the high levels of STIs in our communities are not being quoted enough. We should quote it, we need to quote it. We need to quote those figures so that the community are informed or aware and therefore equipped to take action, and we empower them to matter. That's why the background, Lady Chelsea, is so obvious, People of all age group, young and old, are quoted. There you are, yes? I keep saying yes, 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 yes. Yeah, it matters. Our sexual health matters, huh? How about that, Lady Chelsea, huh?
I agree.
Well, that's the only way to get through to people, isn't it? You've got to say it with a clear, emphatic determination that we've got to respond. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. It's absolutely. I hear you. But we've got to take away the shame, take away the taboo. So for it to be persistently high in one borough in London for more than 20 years, and for the Director of Public Health, Professor Fenton, we've heard earlier on, to note it 5 times higher than the wider communities. So it's not the wider community is doing to us, it's we doing it to ourselves, but not taking action. Yeah? Actions matter. Yeah? And I would hope that between now and our next week, I hear from listeners, I'm a councillor locally, I'm Councillor Martin Seaton. Send a message through to me. Just Google my name, send a message to me, and just confirm you visited your local sexual health clinic or your GP, or you've spoken to the pharmacist. I won't quote your name. I just want to know that this program has compelled you, motivated you to take action, to protect yourself and those around you, your loved ones around you. Okay, that's worthwhile, isn't it, Lady Chelsea? Yeah, absolutely. And so by next week, we'll have our own WhatsApp so that people can send us messages. Okay, so our time is almost up now. So I want to thank you. Lady Chelsea, what do you want to say? Go on, you can do that.
Get tested. That's the main thing. Just get tested.
Absolutely, all get tested. There's the sound coming. Our signature tune. Get tested, everybody. Get tested. You know what? I'm going to get tested. If only to prove the point. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, everybody. Stay strong. Stay positive at all times. Stay positive.
But hold on.